Hey, there we go. Hope you guys are having a good evening. Happy Monday. I'm gonna run it up, do a little live tonight. Hope you guys are doing well. Appreciate everybody there in the chat. Wow, okay. There's a bunch of people already watching this. Very cool. Don't really have an agenda for this evening. Kind of recap, maybe what I've done in the last week here, some of the things that I've got working, and then we can get into some questions. So, had the the privilege to travel to Dubai last week. Really blessed to be a part of different groups in the digital asset space. This one is the USA UAE Alliance. So I sit on the board there with Eddie Cullen, Carl Cribb, Mike, and then Rick Tapia. And really the objective of that group is to incentivize trade and strategic investment between the USA and the UAE using blockchain and DLT technology. So went over there, got to speak with the regulators in Dubai, the VARA, which is the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority, and then the DIFC, which is Dubai Financial DIFC Institutional. I don't remember the full acronym. Anyway, they cover all of the financial markets over there in Dubai. Basically, they're the regulatory authority for securities, similar to the SEC here in the US. So if you're going to transact over there using funds or as a wealth manager or somebody that's managing money on behalf of somebody else, you have to register with the DIFC. And if you're going to deal with digital assets in any capacity, whether that's payments or an exchange or custody or tokenization of things, the VARA is your regulator, and sometimes you're regulated by them. And then you have other people that might regulate you inside the free zones that exist over there. There's a lot of governing bodies. So anyway, went over there, got to meet with them and discuss, why they're ahead of the US and why they've chosen to really foster innovation over there in the Middle East versus here. Wendy has asked, have you heard of GS Partners? I've not heard of GS Partners, but if you have somebody there that you think would be interesting for me to meet, always open to conversations. Trying to establish relationships over there, strategic relationships that can kind of foster the initiative, right? So first step is meeting with regulators on both sides, and then really ironing out what that's going to look like and aligning incentives, making sure that we're within compliance in both jurisdictions for the objectives that we're trying to achieve. And, once that's been kind of put in place, we might even be able to build out, a common ground where there's a sandbox between both jurisdictions for, companies that are innovating in the space. And maybe they're able to build there and then come here. I know that people here in the U.S. are kind of upset with us driving things offshore, but if we can provide a solution that accommodates, both sides of the aisle on that, and appeases regulators and make sure that people are within compliance, that's what we're looking to do. So really cool trip. Got to meet with MasterCard. Got to meet the head of compliance at Binance. A lot of other, projects on XDC. We had the conference there at XDC's office. Appreciate Atul and Ritesh for accommodating us and allowing us to use their space. They're at the offices in Dubai. So really enjoyed that. Was there Monday to Friday and was like back-to-back meetings the whole time. So I need to do better about like doing lives and doing TikToks and other stuff while I'm in the location. We'll have to get a camera crew or something for travel. But anyway, if you guys want to run that down, would welcome any questions on that, or if you want to get into mitigating taxes, setting yourself up for success, pre-liquidity event, what that looks like here in the U.S. as it pertains to mitigating taxes and estate planning. Always open for those discussions. And there's a little green in the market today. Pretty sure everybody's happy about that. I don't know long that'll last, but it's nice to see the portfolio up. So a couple good comments here. Let's see. We got Peter. He says, even though you were on assignment in Dubai last week, I still check in if you were live. No, yeah. Sorry I missed y'all last week. Like I said, I was in a completely different time zone. So Dubai is 10 hours ahead of where I am here, Central Standard Time, in the US. So, it's 9 p.m. here. It's going to be 7 a.m. there right now. Pretty cool sunrise in Dubai. If you haven't ever been, I would highly recommend. Just the size of everything there in comparison to here in the US is breathtaking. They definitely know how to do it big there in Dubai. So if you haven't ever been, I would encourage you. It is a long flight though. If you're going to go, I would say fly Emirates. Emirates will take great care of you. Might be a little more expensive, but the money's well spent. Business class or first class would be my recommendation if you're going to take that 15-hour flight direct. You might, if you do British Airways or Qatar, you're probably going to have a layover. Emirates will fly you direct depending on what international airports you fly out of. So anyway, run it up in the chat here. So let's see. TK, he says, who is ahead in real world asset tokenization, XRP or XDC? There's a lot of initiatives that are already tokenizing real world assets on XDC's network and XLM, Hyperledger BOSU. That's what MasterCard explained that they were using to us. I've spoken with a lot of people. You've got Franklin Templeton, who's tokenized a good bit there. You've got other people that have tokenized gold on both of those networks. XRP, I actually think is kind of the laggard for visible adoption when it comes to tokenization of real world assets. I think that it will catch up very quickly though, in how visible those things are once you get digital identity native to the network. So we get XLS 40D that is being voted on and should be pretty good once that goes live. I think that that's really going to foster institutions' capability to come onto the network and tokenize financial products and real world assets on the ledger. People don't realize how large of a consideration both custody and identity are. They're really the prerequisites for being able to scale all the cool, sexy stuff that you want on top of it. And then also the other reason that I would say these networks kind of went out over some of the other ones is, and this is just my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm not, I don't have a crystal ball, but this is how I see things. I think you need a public-private capability to a network to be able to really tokenize financial products at scale, because there's a lot of times transactions with these financial products, you don't want that necessarily on a public mainnet where anybody has access to that information. Talked to a gentleman not too long ago that's tokenizing stuff on Solana, and him and I had a disagreement about that. A lot of people want, open transparency, which I think is great in certain circumstances, but I really don't want my social security number just out available for anybody to access, or for anybody to be able to see just immediately what I'm trading. Pelosi and all of these political people, they have to disclose that at the end of each quarter, what they're trading. Same thing with financial managers, just to make sure that there's not any conflict of interest where they're like trading against their clients, or incentivizing them to purchase things after they've already bought in. There's things that can be manipulated if you have other people's funds and you've kind of front run people. So in those circumstances, you want disclosures and you want the capability to view those transactions and those to be transparent for the people that you're transacting on behalf of, or with. But for the average person that doesn't need to meet those disclosures, I don't think you want all your transactions just out there on a public mainnet. So I think one, anonymity is going to be important. Identity component and what you're going to be able to share is important. And then I think these things will progress. So I think you'll have siloed networks where private marketplaces are built up and orchestrated, and then eventually there'll be public mainnets where public marketplaces interact between those siloed networks, similar to the payments in the banks now. Like people talk about the walls that have been built, or David Schwartz does, and you need a button that you can press and the walls come down. I think it'll be similar for a lot of these financial products. So to answer your question specifically, out of those two, visibility wise, I would say XDC. Where do I think everything's going to end up long term? Probably, I say everything. A lot of financial products I think will end up on the XRPO. Let's see here. Sherry, that's a lot to put together. Yeah, it is. Here we go. Majors asked, what's up, Jake? Quick question. What are your thoughts on bank term funding program ending today? I think that's very interesting. So there's specific language in that legislation or piece of, I'm at a loss for words, what was passed and basically put in place. They talk about fiat. They can no longer loan fiat. So that tells me, if they wanted to continue this or they needed to, probably going to have to introduce a CBDC or a digital currency of some kind to be able to lend that. We'll see what that ends up being. Is it a CBDC launched here in the US? Is it something else? I'm excited. Made a couple videos recently about, Tether and the possible implications there. I will speak to this. Excuse me. Everybody that I talk to over there in Dubai has de-risked from Tether. They're not transacting in it. MasterCard, we talked about that a little bit. Some of the other people I spoke with also not looking too favorably at Tether. So I don't know if they're going to get sanctioned or if, U.S. treasuries are going to be a problem. I don't know what's going to be the issue. Looking closer to the sanction side than the treasury side, I don't think the U.S. is going to default on debt. They can print money. So, yeah, if you're using Tether, if you're planning to buy through Tether, if you're holding things in Tether, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Always consult with yours before making any investment decisions or deciding where to hold your money. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. But I personally will not be dealing with Tether in any capacity in the short term here. There seems to be some not so good things. And it's also depegged on Binance. That's been going on for a while, though, and it repegged and it's come unpegged again, similar to like a Terra Luna type situation. So I don't know. I don't know how long that lasts or what happens, but I'm going to be staying away from Tether. So anyway, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think that they'll probably have to introduce some digital currency in order to continue providing liquidity for these institutions now that the bank term funding program has ended. So this one's good. Atlantic Living says, you mentioned MasterCard. Did you chat with some employees testing with Ripple? No. They specifically said they're using Hyperledger BOSU. No talk of XRP, no talk of Ripple. Now, they did have some pretty interesting... I can't share on here with you. I snuck a picture of their slide. But they have a full offering for exchanges and banks. They've got custody, buy, sell, crypto on and off ramps, rewards programs, which is something that we're going to be looking into. If I don't know if you guys, there's probably a lot of people on here that know Uphold or Global ID if you've been around a while. And they did issue a MasterCard where you could spend your crypto that was held on Uphold and receive XRP, like cash back when you spent what you had on Uphold. I thought that was great. I took advantage of that when that existed. Since then, Global ID severed their partnership with a lot of people, and they're really looking to be an agnostic identity solution, not specific to the XRPL. So, had a conversation with them. They didn't really meet the criteria for what we were looking for KYC, AML, and accreditation. But I think that their product is very interesting, and they're likely going to integrate with some of the larger platforms that you already know and use. That's kind of how I think whoever ends up with the identity solution, I think that's what they're going to have to do. So like a Facebook, Google, places that you already have a lot of this information and transact on a frequent basis. If you had a Web3 identity provider or passport that integrated there, then it's an easy adoption curve because the majority of people already use those and transact with them. So to answer your question specifically, no, they are not testing RippleNet, not dealing with international transactions. At some scale they are, but they're primarily focused on merchant payments and providing, payment solutions to exchanges and banks is really what they're looking to do. Here's a good one. Jonathan's asked, Jake, any additional information on PolySign and the acquisition of assets by Ripple? So we still don't have an approval from the NYDFS on standard custody by Ripple, but based on things moving around and people being moved around, pretty confident that that's going to go through. I don't think that they would be willing to make the changes that they have and are if that wasn't going to be the case. And I'm excited for that. It would be cool for us to work with Ripple through Digital Ascension Group. If you don't know, we have a custody account there for our clients at the family office. And, if you have more than 100,000 in value in XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Avalanche, Solana, Matic, Chainlink, and there's a bunch of DeFi protocols, we can custody your digital assets with standard custody and provide you up to $50 million in insurance on your assets in a completely segregated vault. It's the most secure cold wallet on the planet. And, I'm very bullish on PolySign's technology. They still maintain their IP and they still have control of AtomicNet, which I don't think people really grasp how impactful that protocol is. We'll see if it actually displaces the clearinghouse. I think it'll be a while before that happens. Another one of the people that I got to meet over there in Dubai is Patrick Campos. I've got to follow up with him, later this week. And he was a strategic advisor for Securrency, which was acquired by the DTCC and is now their digital assets division there at the DTCC for tokenization of financial products. Good buddies with Jake Clayton. So, but back to your question here. Nothing really to report. I think that PolySign did issue a statement to shareholders through Link2. I've got to follow up with the CEO for potential things I'm working on with them, aside from, no longer working directly with them through standard custody. And as things transpire, happy to report back to you guys. But I don't have anything right now. Let's see here. Bummer says, what type of price do you see XRP going to in the next couple years? It all depends on adoption. I'm just going to say that. So if we continue with the constraints as they've existed in the past, and we get a halving and there's a bull run. We're in a bull run right now, which is unusual pre-halving. I'm okay with it, but everybody's yelling that Bitcoin's going to 100,000. Hesitant to believe that. I think we're a bit premature. I think it's kind of a buy the rumor, sell the news. I think most people understand how things have happened in the past around the halving, and you might get some run up, kind of like you did for the ETF, and then a sell off. I don't anticipate, and constraints have changed a bit. We've got financial institutions involved. We've got ETFs at scale. Your buy side seems, pretty large. OTC desks are out of Bitcoin to be able to sell people. Demand seems to be insatiable. But blow off tops always happen in euphoria. They never happen in fear. So right now seems a little euphoric to me. I don't know what the fear and greed index is today, but I'm sure it's probably closer to the 80. which is where I start getting concerned and, kind of look for pullbacks. And Bitcoin always has a 30 or 40% retracement on the way up in the bull market, multiple. There's normally like 3 or 4 on the way up to new all-time high. So we've just now passed all-time high. We're like 72,000, 73,000 on Bitcoin. My anticipation is we will have, we had a 10% pullback the other day. Not that big a deal, but if we had a 30 or 40% drawdown in the market, that could be pretty dramatic losses for the investment banks, especially if it didn't regain the price very quickly and stayed there for an extended period of time. They settle T+2. So, I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for there to be some decent losses for the investment banks now that they do have a large allocation to Bitcoin, and see where that leads. I anticipate them having to pull from other positions to back up those positions in the ETF and, cover losses. We'll see what impact that has on the broader market. I think that there could potentially be systemic risk at this point. So, kind of sidestepped your question here, but I would say, well, you've given this as very vague. Okay. So you said, what type of price do I see XRP going to in the next couple of years? I'm just going to say high because you just listed type. I'm going to say a high price. I'm not going to give a number. All right. We've got Pay Me an XLM. Appreciate you hopping on here. You're always an avid viewer and appreciate your good questions. Can you give me a brief overview on how to structure a foundation in an LLC? LLC Inc. benefits. Thank you. A foundation. Okay. So a foundation is a nonprofit organization that can own for-profits. For-profits cannot own nonprofits. So your LLC or C Corp cannot own a nonprofit, but your nonprofit, your charity or foundation can own an LLC or a corporation underneath it. So the wording on your question's a little off, but I'm going to try to run this down and try to answer it. So foundations can be very advantageous. You can make donations on an annual basis. Foundations tend to be, well, they are private nonprofits. Charitable organizations are public nonprofits. Foundations make allocations to charities each year. And the minimum there is 5% of the endowment that they have or the revenue that they've been able to produce, the assets under management that they hold. They have to donate 5% of that to other charities as a minimum. Both of these types of nonprofits, you're frowned upon if you pay the board or advisors or managing people more than 20% of the profits that are accrued there each year or the donations that are made. So you kind of want to stay at or below that threshold if you're taking salaries out of those nonprofits. And then obviously a portion of that can be paid toward the expenses of the nonprofit, the overhead that's involved there. But the majority of it, the lion's share, is supposed to go toward the benefit. You can put that in an endowment. Endowments are not taxed. So you can buy, sell, trade, private equity, digital assets, real estate, whatever else you want inside of an endowment in a nonprofit or a charitable organization. And you don't have to pay any taxes or capital gains on any of those transactions. So that's how you compound things really quickly. You can have a management company that is a for-profit entity that manages the endowment and takes a management fee. This is what Harvard and Stanford and a lot of these corporations, they're nonprofits, they're universities, but they have a for-profit management company that manages their endowment that has trillions of dollars in it, and they do take pretty significant fees off of that. And they trade private equity, and they, again, all those things that I mentioned before, completely tax-free. So there's a lot of benefits to the foundations and nonprofits. When you're looking at an LLC or corporation, it's dependent on your situation and what you're using it for. You just kind of asked you said, can you give me a brief overview on how to structure a foundation in an LLC or Inc. benefits? Hopefully that's answered your question. I mean, I just threw a lot at you there when it comes to nonprofits. But yeah, for-profits cannot own nonprofits. Nonprofits can own for-profits, and those profits from those for-profit companies can roll up into the nonprofit and then be put into the endowment, invested, or paid out to the people that are managing the nonprofit. So, yeah, hopefully that's, and if I didn't answer it, ask it in a way that, conveys a little bit more context on what you're looking for. I've taken the cattle class and you forget how to walk a little bit. Lots of good questions here in the chat. Appreciate you guys hopping on a Monday night. Got a lot of people in the chat here and viewing. So just want to say I appreciate y'all. Atlantic Living says, a lot of people wondering about Ripple hitting a ridiculous price by 2030. What is the reasonable amount of coins should hold for life-changing wealth? That's going to be different for everybody. I don't know what your life circumstances are. I don't know what lifestyle you want to live. If you want to be a millionaire, I think 10,000 is probably enough to hold by 2030 that you're going to be in that category. What are dollars worth at that point? I have no idea. Do we continue to see hyperinflation? Quite possibly, if circumstances don't change. So I would agree with what most people would consider a ridiculous price by 2030. I would most definitely agree with that. Reasonable amount of coins one should hold for life-changing wealth. If you're already super rich, I don't know. I'll give you an example. So one of my mentors, Howard Gedson, I don't speak with him very frequently. I call him when I want strict advice on something because I know he's not going to bullshit me. The man manages a $400 million hedge fund. It's an AI hedge fund. And a lot of paradigm shifts in conversations with him. He asked me a couple years ago what a lot of money was to me. And at the time, I had just come into a pretty good amount of money via crypto. And, I said, the money that I have now seems like a lot of money. And I said, well, what's a lot of money for you? And he's in his 50s. He's done really well. And his wife's parents are billionaires. So for him, he said, if I had another 100 million, it really wouldn't change how I live or the quality of my life. But it would allow me to gamble a little bit more on private equity. And so you asking, what's a reasonable amount of coins that we should hold for life-changing wealth? I don't know where your life is right now or how it would change based on the amount of money that you may or may not receive from your investment. So it's difficult to say, for him, I think he would have to hold a lot of XRP to get another 100 million. But for you, $100,000 might change your life. I don't know. The circumstances are going to be different for everybody. But anyway, that was just a paradigm shift for me that I felt like sharing with you guys, that what might be life-changing for one person may be completely trivial to somebody else. And the amount of money, and this is cool. It's going to sound stupid, but I'm going to tell you, whatever you think is a lot of money, that's what a lot of money is in your life. So if you decide that hundreds of millions of dollars is a lot of money, that's probably the most money that you'll ever have. If you decide that billions of dollars is a lot of money and anything less than that is not really that much money, then you probably have billions of dollars. If you think $50,000 is a lot of money, then it's probably the cap that you're going to have in your life. And if you get above that, you're probably going to regress to that point. Whatever your standard is for something is what you're going to get. So I would just challenge you, redefine those. When you get to those new thresholds, which I think a lot of people here watching will, readdress those things. What are your core beliefs that allow you to step up to the next level and not regress? So if you come into $1 million, you best become a millionaire pretty quickly. Jim Rohn, if you guys don't know who he is, good stuff. Appreciate you on the super chat here. Oh, this is no, it's not. $4 for a cup of coffee. Turnout. Hey Jake, a lot of people will be liquidating their assets this cycle. How can people pay taxes if they liquidate millions when banks may freeze their bank account? Yeah, you're going to want to be proactive on this stuff. So this is what we help people do. We can set up bank accounts for you at Digital Ascension Group. We can help you establish your LLC, your corporation, or your trust, depending on what you need. We always, get you the minimum. We're not trying to. If your money's better spent invested, we'd rather you have it there. We're not trying to take a whole bunch of money from people. We do a lot of stuff on the cheap to make sure that you can get what you need, the bare minimum before price appreciation. You want to make sure that you have a bank account that's not going to get frozen. It's really what it comes down to, turnout. You want to get with an institution that might move you over to their private banking side in anticipation of the liquidity event. Have a conversation with them, open up those accounts. You do probably want to meet certain minimums for the amount that you're going to keep in those accounts. And develop those banking relationships now before price appreciation happens. That way, when you do, liquidate $1 million and it comes into your bank account, it's coming into a trust account or a business account and not your personal account, because it's very likely if you liquidate to a personal account, they're gonna freeze those funds, especially if it came from a crypto brokerage and you hadn't had a conversation with them. I would make sure that you have a feasible way to cash out that is reliable and it's not going to be a problem. On the taxes side, hopefully you're not having to pay any taxes again. Hopefully you set up an LLC or a trust that allows you to spend that money in some way that you're wanting to anyway, and write off that income. But if you're liquidating stuff into your personal name, you're going to have to deal with the tax implications irrespective. You're not going to have the write-offs or the capability to write things off. And you're going to get whacked with at least 20%. So if you're liquidating millions on capital gains here in the US, and if you're in a different jurisdiction, probably more than that. Unless you're in Dubai or Switzerland. There's a few other ones where it's not that big a deal. But I would just be cognizant of those things. Raymond has a question here. With all you've seen and learned up to now, do you think holding XRP, not selling any, through this crypto cycle will be better than selling some coins? Will XRP break out of the crypto cycle? Again, I'm just going to, you're not going to like this answer. I'm sorry. I don't know your position. I need a lot more context to speak to what you have going on. I will say this: it's never wrong to take profit. You're never going to go broke taking profit. I know you got a lot of people out there fear mongering that if you sell into the US dollar, it's just going to go up in flames, and it's not true. On the other side of this, the US dollar is still going to be around. It's going to be backed just like the rest of the currencies, and liquidating into whatever treasury note or backed currency we have, it's not going to be a problem. And the real price of XRP not going to come around until that's actually the case, right? They're going to roll into this new system, and when you liquidate, I'm not worried about liquidating into fiat dollars. That's how the world transact on, mostly. That's shifting, but you're still going to have to be able to buy stuff, do things, and most people aren't going to accept your XRP, at least until it's a tier 1 asset in the banking system. So don't just sell willy-nilly. Have a plan for those profits. Know what you're going to do with them. Have an allocation. Hopefully you're doing it inside of a business or a trust where you can, purchase whatever it is you're looking to do, and, finance it and depreciate the asset against your income. Or you can fund other life insurance policies, or you can use all of the other loopholes in the tax code. I say loopholes. They're part of the tax code to offset your tax implications. If you are young, let's just speak to the situation here. If you were young, or what are some of the considerations on why you might hold or might sell? We'll go through that. So I did a whole video series on this. If you haven't checked that out, I would encourage you to go back on the YouTube channel. There's a 3-video series with different constraints for people and what they may or may not do, how to set up their estate and be proactive. But let's say you're younger and you have a longer time horizon. You might not liquidate anything. You might have a good job that's paying you good money. You might plan on staying there. You might like your job. There's a few people out there that like their job. And you might be able to hang out at that even after you do see some significant price appreciation and allow your assets to continue to appreciate. We're working on a solution that'll allow you to draw a 20% line of credit against your assets. And as long as they're put somewhere that's earning more interest than the interest that's due on your line of credit, then you can pay for it very easily, right? So anyway, I like infinite banking. If you don't know what that is, I would go check it out. Most time it's done with insurance policies, but we're going to be able to do it with digital assets as things continue here. So in that instance, if you plan on doing that, you might utilize the AMM if it's XRP in particular, or if you're holding your assets with us at standard custody. I'm hopeful that Ripple will allow us to participate in ODL and earn a pretty significant yield on our XRP that's held there. That is yet to be determined. I haven't had a conversation with them, but I'm hoping to have that conversation in the interim in the next few weeks here. Could be some pretty substantial interest accrued there. But let's say you want to pay your home off. Let's say you're a little bit later in life and it's closer to retirement. Nothing wrong with taking profit and selling. Will this cycle be different? Yes. Constraints have changed. Things are not the same. Other constraints are about to change. A lot of the utility for these networks is about to come into vogue, and we're going to see the Cambrian explosion. But I don't think that's before one more catalyst happens in the markets here. So one more opportunity to buy maybe depends on the liquidity that exists in the market. And then beyond that, it's just bull cycle for 10 years. In my opinion, I don't think that we'll have these 4-year cycles that'll continue. So just my 2 cents though. Appreciate you, brother. I'm glad. Thank you, F, for becoming a member. Let's see. AM says, they asked me personally, will I sell all my XRP this bull market? Absolutely not. I will not be selling all my XRP. If I, like I just stated, if I get my way, I will be able to leverage it and draw a line of credit against it at a reasonable interest rate while the rest of it's staked or delegated to an AMM or put out for loan and generating interest to be able to pay the payments on my line of credit that I use to purchase other assets that produce cash flow. So I am actively working to build the ways that you'll be able to leverage your XRP and other digital assets to produce income and for lines of credit, so that you don't have to sell. You can maintain exposure for however long you want to, and then if at any point in the future you did decide to sell, you could, but you're going to incur those tax implications again. And people's basis on this stuff is so low in comparison to where it's going. When you get in something this low, and it's going to go so much higher. Like people that, like, let's say just Bitcoin as an example. I have clients that got in Bitcoin at $30, and they bought a lot of Bitcoin at $30. Okay, their basis is so low. Like the only way to really mitigate taxes is to just lend against it. You can stake it on Aave and take it out at like 5% against your Bitcoin or Ethereum in Tether. And then you can take that Tether and swap it for USDC and stake that somewhere at like 10 and 12%. Like there's a lot of DeFi solutions and lending solutions when your basis is so low to keep yourself from having to have significant tax implications. And I was blessed enough to get in 2020. A lot of what I own is still from then. And so, yeah, we're in the green already. imagine where it goes, right? So I'm not going to say I'm not going to sell any XRP, but the majority of my bag I'm holding long term. Yeah, appreciate you, Living Legacy. If you haven't yet and you're getting some value from this, we would love it if you would smash the like button. The like button, and subscribe if you think it's worth your time. Man, y'all are harping on the price prediction here. You know what? I'll just give it to you. That's fine. Don't shoot the messenger. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea. I'm just some guy on the internet. Okay. I don't think that XRP will even participate in this bull run. I think that we're going to see utility of the asset. And if you see utility of the asset in the ways that I'm hopeful, I don't think it's out of the question to see 3 or 4 digits for XRP if it's used at scale the way that I think it's going to be. So, like I said, I don't think XRP will even participate in this bull run. I think that it's going to be something completely separate from the rest of the market when it's used at scale. And like I said, there's some other assets that'll probably go along with that. XDC, got to meet Atul and Ritesh in Dubai. There's a lot of interesting things being developed on that network. They're partnered with R3 and SBI, where it could be used at scale in certain applications for tokenization of real world assets and TradeFi. TradeFi is already being built on that network. Like, they're very far along with that. And so my anticipation is over the next 2 years, we will see XDC adopted at scale for trade finance, and probably some other applications as well. I have an interview with Harley that'll go live. He's developing on that network and has some pretty interesting things for foundations. So XLM, same thing, like Hyperledger Bosu. Like I said, MasterCard's looking to use that. And they have a multi-token application that allows swapping between issued assets, which was very interesting. They don't decide who is able to pay in what, but they give you the application to basically be able to pay in anything you want as long as the merchant deems it's acceptable. So pretty cool. And all of that bodes well for those networks. Transaction volume is what's going to lead to price. And so the higher the transaction volume, the larger the transactions that are moving over the network, the higher price the token will have to be to provide liquidity for those transactions. You guys are doing great on the questions over here, and I am running behind. Crypto Roger says XRP stablecoin at $1,000 is fine by me. Yeah, I would also be fine with that. Matty G. It's not that Matty G, but I do like this Matty G. He's often on the lives. Appreciate you hopping on here and asking good questions, brother. He says, can I prioritize selling the XRP I've held the longest? If I store all my crypto on a Ledger wallet, does it automatically select the oldest to transfer for the exchange? Do you know how that works? You get to decide that, brother. So your accounting that you decide to abide by is what decides which part of your assets you're selling. So you can use LIFO or you can use FIFO. So is it last in, first out, or is it first in, first out? I prefer FIFO. So that's going to be the oldest XRP that you have is what you're going to be selling, right? That's your accounting that you're using. And therefore it's going to have capital gains if that's been over a year. If it's, LIFO, last in, first out, then whatever you bought last week is what you're selling now, and you're going to have short-term capital gains on those sales. So up to you. I like FIFO. That's the accounting that I use for my investments. But it's not like you get to choose which ones you're selling. It's just the accounting mechanism that you're going to abide by for your financials and your CPA. If you have a good CPA, they're going to be dealing with that for you anyway. So, good. Uh-oh, what happened? There we go. will there be a bridge built from XDC to the XRPL? I think R3 already has that. And I think that there are other applications for that as well. So to answer your question, yes, and it's already been built. Enigma says, I'll be paying my bills in XRP and getting XRP back. Yeah, if you're using a MasterCard that, maybe we work with the issue against your digital assets, you might be able to get that back in XRP like they did for Uphold. You just have to work with a body that pays you in XRP, which could be Ripple. So we'll see. A lot of good questions here. What if, X Factor says, what if we only have over 100K and a few tokens? Can we store the rest there too? No. So standard custody currently only provides custody for 31 assets. If you want to email me, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm happy to share the documentation with anybody. If you want to just email info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, we can send you the PolySign, well, it's no longer PolySign, standard custody sheet on all the assets that are approved by the NYDFS and capable of being held there. But yeah, you're going to need at least 100,000 in the assets that they hold. So again, that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Matic, Avalanche, Chainlink, and then a bunch of DeFi protocols. So yeah, XLM, HBAR, Quant, all of the things that a lot of other people hold. We're looking for a solution for that. I've got a meeting with Kraken tomorrow, and hopefully we will be able to orchestrate a solution for the other assets that a lot of my clients do hold. So let's see here. Sherry, good looking out, Sherry. Appreciate you posting this here. 92 on the Fear and Greed Index. That is a sell indicator. Not to say it can't stay here, but that is hot, man. This is normally where you see one of those pullbacks, like I'm talking about, that 30 or 40% pull down. Just be careful out there. Don't buy the top. Not to say this is the top again. You just need to cool off before it's another leg up. If the bull market continues in the fashion that it has been. Payme XLM says, can you give me a brief overview of the XRP domino theory? I watched the video a few times and couldn't grasp the information shared. Yeah, I'll give you like a high level. So the first domino that I see, you got a bunch of dominoes lined up here, is Japan. Japan is likely going to launch their CBDC in the short term here in Q1 with the partnership between HSBC and Medico. So they're going to be rolling out digital asset custody. I don't know why else they would be doing that unless there was going to be a CBDC in that jurisdiction. They are the only G7 nation currently in the pilot phase of the application for the CBDCs. So that's my anticipation. We see something in Q1 here, next 20 days, a rollout of a CBDC, the first one. And in correlation with that, Japan currently owns about 60% of its own bonds. Potentially there's a sell-off there that goes along with that in U.S. Treasuries, possible implications. Tether has really been the one that's buying on the open market for U.S. Treasuries to back their currency, their one-to-one peg. And there's been a lot of talk about sanctions when it comes to Tether in particular, just for people being able to transact on that network that are providing illicit services and doing things that they're not supposed to be, evading OFAC and sanctions. So it's my anticipation, again, just after a lot of conversations that I've had, that Tether will get sanctioned. And that's pretty significant. The only recourse they would have at that point would be to dump or sell their U.S. Treasuries. If they do that, then we're going to see a liquidation event across multiple people for U.S. Treasuries. That causes instability in the U.S. dollar. It also would cause instability, and a lot of people are going to say, okay, Bitcoin's like going to be the answer there, and a lot of people are going to run to that. I think that there might be some other narratives that come out at that point around Bitcoin, potentially along the lines of like Epstein's Island. We'll see. This is a lot of speculation. I got my tinfoil hat on here. Okay, take this all with a grain of salt. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just going to say that again. But here's my like thesis of what I think plays out. So I think people run from Bitcoin. They run from Tether. I think you have adoption of XRP at the same time because the CBDC that's issued in Japan is on the XRPL. You've got XRP going parabolic, everything else collapsing, a lot of people running for the door. There's no liquidity to off-ramp anymore because Tether is locked out. So you're going to USDC or you're going to XRP. And I think that's a lot of way that they funnel liquidity from the existing system into XRP. And they also need that to settle the back end of the stock market because I think that you're going to see, again, with the ETFs that are in place and the implications there for Bitcoin with the destabilization of Tether and potential narratives that come out, a big sell-off there. And again, investment banks with their large allocations at this point are going to be left out in the open, probably in a bad spot with significant losses. So they're going to have to pull from their traditional financial investments to cover losses here. The implications for that are, the broader markets would have a downturn because of the sell-off there. And just a catalyst and compounding effect and snowball of not good that happens. And the solution is you got to shore up the system. You got to bring in, stabilization through commodity-backed currencies that are sovereign and issued by each nation. And, XRP needs to rise in value to provide liquidity in an ecosystem that's illiquid, liquidity crisis. And this is orchestrated too. Somebody earlier mentioned the bank term funding ending today. I don't think that that's coincidence. I think this is kind of an orchestrated liquidity crisis that's coming. And that's what ODL and XRP were built for, on-demand liquidity. So hopefully that gives you a better insight into this end, that end of the dominoes. What order do they fall in? How does it work out? I don't know. Those are just the things that I see lined up. And if one of them gets knocked over any direction, the rest of them could fall and cause, be a catalyst for the implementation of all the things that a lot of people that are watching this are hopeful for. So, what bank is not partners with Ripple? I don't know of one that's not like a quasi partner with Ripple. So you have Santander, you have Accenture, and you have some other large bodies that utilize RippleNet that have integrated with that have tentacles that go into all of these lower institutions. You've got Vanguard, you've got SBI, you've got BlackRock, you've got tons of other institutions, Fidelity, JP Morgan. Like, everybody has some connection through either an intermediary or directly with Ripple at this point. And if they're not partnered with Ripple directly, they're probably partnered with R3. Appreciate you guys in the chat here. If you are interested, we do have the Mastermind, Beyond Broke Mastermind. I do these every single week in there. We have great conversations around a lot of these topics where I provide additional insight that I don't publicly. So if that interests you, we'd love to have you there. We do also do some private investment through that group, get you allocations to things that are far less than what is publicly available to even other accredited investors. If you want access to those types of deals, we would love to have you there in Carbon One. So Mr. Nobody is running it up over here. Good question here. So Atlantic Living says, is Casper in your portfolio? Transparently with you guys, again, nothing here is financial advice. This is just me. You do you. Okay. If you like to be diversified, cool. If you have your few that you like, if you only want 1% in crypto, cool. I'm just going to give you what I'm doing. You do you. This is not financial advice. I really like Casper. Again, I mentioned earlier, I think things that allow for public and private interaction through one distributed ledger technology are probably ideal. Casper does that. I think that there's a lot of enterprise business applications for Casper, and that it'll do really well once utility comes into vogue in specific applications for that. I currently don't hold any Casper. I don't own anything other than XRP. That's all I got. You can call me a maxi. That's fine. I just don't see anything else in the market that's going to give me the same ROI and capability to leverage it post liquidity event and implementation. And I've missed out on tons of stuff because of that, just transparently. Missed out on all the meme coins. I missed out on all the NFTs. I missed out on Solana earlier this year. I missed out on Pepe. I missed out on SHIB. I missed out on Doge. I missed out on all kinds of stuff because I am pretty risk adverse. Like, I go to the casino and I take $100 with me, and if I win 100, I'm done. Like, if I get up more than 100, I'm out. I cash out. I'm done. And if I lose my 100, like, that's my tolerance. That is my gamble. I don't gamble. And so for me, I would rather hold. I just sleep really good is the truth. Like, anytime I've ever tried to diversify, like when I first got into crypto, I made a lot of money diversified in 20 and 21. And was worried and like stressed out and concerned all the time. And since I've consolidated to XRP, I just sleep really well and I don't worry about it. I know that it's good and I don't have to think about it. I don't even look at price most days. Like most people, like people had to text me when price was going up earlier today. I just don't even look at it because I'll know when it's implemented. It's just a lot easier for me that way. So I don't have Casper in my portfolio. I plan to leverage my XRP and diversify into other things that I think will do really well and provide income in some other capacity long term. But until that one pays out and becomes a tier one asset in the banking system, that's all I will continue to purchase. So again, just my 2 cents. You do you. Casper is a great asset, and I think that it'll do really well long term. Just not something I hold right now. Yeah, living legacy, not financial advice. No, it's not financial advice. It's just what I'm doing. You guys asked me. I'm trying to be transparent with y'all. Let's see here. Jason Grove said, did XDC really join Comtech and pegging a gram of gold to each token? No. Not that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. I was just at the headquarters. There was no discussion of that. There's a few gold projects that are being built on XDC's network, but no discussion of pegging. And here's the other piece of this. You don't want these things pegged to a commodity. Okay, they need to be flexible. The more volume and assets that are issued on the network, they need to be flexible. They need to be able to continue to increase in price to be able to provide liquidity to more volume and things being issued on the network. If they're pegged to something, it doesn't become dynamic. It's now stagnant, and you would never see full adoption of the network at scale because it wouldn't be able to provide enough liquidity for all of the things that were being built on a network. So when somebody says pegged, I run. I don't like that word. I don't think that they know what they're talking about if they're saying that unless it's a stable coin, it's going to be pegged to something. I don't normally entertain those conversations. So just, again, my 2 cents. Golly, lots of comments here. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, thank you, Big Silly. Appreciate you on the 22,000 followers. I'm blown away that this many people care about what I have to say. I just feel like, I don't think that I'm special. Just really privileged to have good people around me. Feel really blessed. Just grateful for all the people that have subscribed to the channel and are in the mastermind, and I get to interact with on a daily basis. Again, feel really privileged to be around all of y'all. David, Let's see here. Interesting. I don't know if you guys saw Chad Steinberg's post, but we talked about that in the Mastermind today. The premiums for what the shares are trading at over the underlying assets for Grayscale's investment products seems crazy. X Factor says, what is a lot of XRP in this example? I don't know where I was when you commented that. I'll put it to you this way. I think 5 years from now, if you hold more than 10,000 XRP, you're going to be a rare breed. I think that the majority of people will liquidate long before that happens. I think most people will liquidate the majority of what they hold at all-time high. If you're watching this channel, maybe not. But the average person out there might be 110,000 people on the planet that hold more than 3,000 XRP. You know, if you just wanted to pick that one in particular. If you're in crypto, it's already pretty nascent. There's really not that many people. Most people just have an allocation to Bitcoin or Ethereum. If you're into altcoins at all, if you're owning anything else, you're already in a minority. But yeah, like I've done the calculation, might be 110,000 people that own more than 3,000 XRP. And the majority of those people, again, gets to all-time high. If they saw 20 bucks, 10 bucks, 50 bucks, they're out. They've sold, they're done. Like, cool. And then, you know, the people that do have enough to weather that and hang out and hold it for an extended period of time, I think there might be, I don't know, maybe 20,000 people on the planet have more than 10,000 XRP 5 years from now. Like, that's it. Probably really not that many people. So if you're able to hold it a long time, I think that will be a lot of XRP. 10,000 XRP is probably a lot of XRP in 5 years. Let's see here. How much you can get is enough. I would agree with that. Whatever you can afford, and don't ever invest more than you're willing to lose. I'm younger. I have a longer time horizon. I feel pretty confident that I've done the research on stuff, but for most people, you know, 1 to 5% of your portfolio, probably a good allocation for digital assets. And I'll say this, I really like Kevin O'Leary's way for how he structures things in his investment portfolio, just to make sure that he is hedged. So let's say you do make a ton of money, okay? You're probably going to have a significant allocation of your wealth that's still held in the trunk. You know, I've talked about this before, but how I illustrate wealth is you grow your wealth in one vertical, and then at the top you have a diversification into different verticals across the swath or a large swath of the financial options that you have. But that one core vertical is still pretty big, right? And for him, that doesn't ever make up more than 20% of his portfolio. So 1/5 of his portfolio is never in more than 20%. It's not in one vertical. So like say all of crypto, he might have 20% of his portfolio in crypto, and no more than 5% of his entire portfolio can ever be invested in one investment. Now, Kevin didn't make his money investing. Kevin made his money from an exit on a company. So that's a bit different than somebody that makes their money in an investment. Again, their competencies are probably going to be in that lane if they made their money there. So I don't think that it's wrong to have more than 60 or 70%. If you are really truly competent in a certain area, probably stay there. That's what made you your money. You could probably make more money there, can make good choices. But it is good to de-risk some. And I think that 30% is probably a good number to like have in some other places. Stick with energy or housing or private equity and other things aside from crypto to diversify and hedge against losses, right? Like I mentioned before, I think we get a bull market for 10 years in crypto after you get utility in the space. And then beyond that, you know, there'll be something else that comes into vogue and is progressive and is the next echelon of what's going to catapult people and their wealth. You had the internet, and then you had, you know, social media was kind of Web 2. This is Web 3. I have no idea what Web 4 will be. You we've got AI, you've got biotech, you've got 3D printing, you've got all these other progressive technologies that are coming into play now as well. And there'll be millionaires and billionaires minted in each one of those. So if you like something, keep the majority of your stuff. Or what does Buffett say? Put all your eggs in one basket and then watch that basket. I think that's a great way to do it. Anyway, yeah, running on an hour here. So probably going to hang out for maybe, I don't know, another 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll shut it down for tonight. Again, just want to say, thank you to everybody that's watching live in the chat and all the fantastic questions. If you haven't, if it's your first time on the channel, please like, subscribe. We'd love to have you here. We do have, again, I'm blown away that we've got over 22,000 subs that want to listen to what I have to say. Pretty cool. Let's see here. Man, some of these are way back. I'm going to try to get up to sorry if I skip your question. I'm going to try to run up to the front here and get to people. We do have a super chat. Appreciate you here. Jimmy Barra. I don't know. Hi, mate. I'm in Australia and love to know how to protect my wealth when XRP really takes off. Do you work outside the US? Yes, I do. Who we work with there in Australia is John. What's John's last name? Email me. If you're outside the US and you're looking for somebody to work with for estate planning in particular, we have a contact in the UK. We have a contact in Canada. We have a contact in Australia. We have a contact in the Middle East. We have a contact in Southeast Asia. And we're working on a contract in South America and Africa also. But we want to be able to provide international contacts for people to orchestrate their estate planning and mitigate taxes and make sure that they're set up for success. But yeah, I do have somebody there in Australia that we work with directly to be able to protect your assets. So again, that's info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, or you can hop on the website digitalfamilyoffice.io and schedule a phone call with myself or our advisors. Happy to help you that way also. So good question. Yeah, we do, and we hold Australian clients' assets with standard custody also. So, but they do have to be in a trust. In your jurisdiction, a trust is going to be the way to go. Our contact can set that up there for like 500 Australian dollars, pretty cheap, and it'll save you a lot on your taxes. There might be some tax implications with moving your assets into that, though. So just be aware of that. Let's see here. Brenda, how are you this evening, ma'am? Do you think XDC XLM will be deemed non-securities? XDC definitely had an ICO. I'll mention this. So talk to Campos, who I mentioned also is affiliated with certain people and in the know. And in that conversation, there was some mention of the SEC coming after other people. I don't know who those people are going to be. He did not tell me specifics, but it's my anticipation that one of those will be Ethereum. We'll see if I'm right on that or not. And then there's probably some other ones as well. XLM, I don't think will be designated a security. It's pretty much like XRP. It's kind of issued the same way, distributed the same way. Probably not a problem. XDC, maybe they have to pay some fines. We'll see. Atul and Ritesh are not doing bad, I can tell you that. And the majority of what they've done is outside the US anyway. So, they're not designated as security there in Dubai. So I don't think that they're going to have any problems. I think both of those will probably be just fine at this point. Here we go. Bummersmith says, how high do you think this thing goes in the next couple of years, Shane? my name's not Shane, but very high would be my anticipation. Let's see here. Peaky Blinders, appreciate you hopping in the chat. Dual Citizen, a lot of good people in here tonight, going back and forth in the chat. Master Chief Coin. Yeah, if you guys hadn't seen that, that's a coin on the XRPL. I don't know who made that. Let's see here. This is interesting. Quant is doing Project Rosalind Digital Foundation in the UK. Quant's interesting. I'm not a quant guy. I really have a hard time understanding, like, Quant's just used to pay the fees or the licensing fees for the software for Overledger. It's not really used to transact on the network. The network's not dependent on Quant to move the value. I have a hard time understanding why it's going to go to some of the price levels that people predict that it will. They are obviously involved with people that matter, but like, so's R3. Okay, R3 doesn't have a token. You still have to pay fees on their network inside the Corded app. They don't have a token that's been issued to do that, but that's kind of what Quant did. They have this, this network that allows for interoperability between different siloed ecosystems to fill gaps. But it's not Quant that you use to transact within that ecosystem. It just, you pay for the fees for the licensing of that product. So just my 2 cents on Quant. And maybe somebody can correct me. Maybe I'm completely wrong and it, goes to the moon and it's worth $1 million or something someday. I made a lot of money on Quant already. I got in at like $9 early on, and did pretty well in 20 and 21. I remember when Kevin Cage was making videos about it. He was kind of like my go-to guy for like where to get into stuff back then. He still does that, by the way. If you guys don't watch Kevin Cage, another great channel. He's more the trading TA guy. I don't do that. I'm more broader economics and like tax mitigation, estate planning, all the stuff you're going to need once you do see appreciation or make it on digital assets. So, here you go. Utility Maxi. Do you like Quant as a long-term hold? No, I don't. Just my 2 cents though, like I said. When will the DFS greenlist XRP again? It's true. I truly believe the inability to trade XRP in states like New York is really holding a price discovery back. I don't think that that's a problem. I think people that, well, here, if you live in New York and you want to be able to buy XRP, I'm going to tell you the secret. Okay. You're going to file yourself a Wyoming LLC, and you're going to set up accounts on exchanges in the name of that Wyoming LLC. You're going to get yourself a VPN and broadcast your IP address over there to Wyoming, which is where your LLC is, and you'll be able to transact and buy XRP with no problems. So I don't think that XRP not being approved for exchanges in New York is holding back the price at all. I think the price is being held back by Ripple selling XRP onto the open market and suppressing price to hold price stability, to be able to facilitate transactions in corridors that need stable price. That's what I think is holding price back. And when it's time to move the price up, they will move the price up. I don't think, New York has anything to do with price suppression on XRP. Just my 2 cents though. So there you go. If you're in New York, that's the way to get around that. And you're going to also be able to mitigate, the state taxes that you have there in New York if you're dealing with your LLC in Wyoming. Y'all running up the likes on this. I appreciate you. Shane, appreciate you, Shane. That's good, kind words, man. I try to be transparent, open, and honest. And like I said, I don't feel like I'm a whole lot different than you guys. Hey, I'll tell y'all, a lot of this is surreal for me. I remember watching DAI and Brad and a lot of the other YouTubers just a couple years ago, almost every single day. Which I'm sure a lot of you guys do still. Um, I have their numbers in my phone. I can call them, talk to them. They're good guys. There's a lot of other people in the space that I've had the privilege of talking to and meeting with. Because I'm doing business and actually driving innovation and trying to build things that benefit, everybody that's involved. And a lot of what I've built is selfish. I've been able to, get the standard custody account. I wanted my assets in institutional custody to be able to sleep at night and have the insurance. And if something happens to me, like my wife isn't without, she didn't know anything about wallets and keys and how to get into that stuff. So I wanted to make sure that was taken care of for her and my son. A lot of the things that I'm working on now are selfish. Like I want to be able to leverage my XRP and take loans against it. And I want to be able to, stake it and earn income that's at a higher interest rate than the loans I'm taking. But by proxy, I'm building out these things and the networks and connections to be able to help everybody else. So, it's really cool, when you have aligned incentives with other people and create games where other people have to win for you to win, things work out for you. So, just appreciate the kind words, man. It means a lot. Some days it's not easy, which I'm sure everybody's like that, right? Like everybody has a hard life. I think I pull some stress onto myself that's undue sometimes, but and it gets rough, but it's really nice to see encouragement from people like yourself that see what's going on, and hopefully I'm providing people value. It makes it worth it. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. Dual citizen. This is a good one. How much tax will I owe on billions? I just wouldn't liquidate, bro. Like if you got billions in assets, just pull loans against them. There's no reason to liquidate that. I'll give you an example. So Elon Musk acquired Twitter, right? Do you know how he did that? Did he sell billions of dollars in stock to then move it over and buy Twitter? Absolutely not. He did a leverage buyout. So he pulled some loans against assets that he holds. He then took the assets that Twitter had and loaned against that and the income that the company had. And then he also raised some capital from outside investors to acquire it at $44 billion. So he didn't sell anything. He didn't liquidate anything. Now, he asked people if he should sell some SpaceX stock so that he would have to pay some taxes. And he did. And he paid more taxes than anybody else has ever paid. Just because he doesn't care. Like that's the other thing I love about Elon. He doesn't care about the money. It's not about the money for him. But when you have that much money, it doesn't have to be about the money, right? Like at that point, the only reason you're playing the game is for purpose. But I would also argue that the only way you get to that level is to play for purpose, because you have to be willing to risk all the money, which he's done multiple times. He's rolled the dice multiple times and almost lost it all multiple times and just got by the skin on his teeth, like barely made it. And somehow both Tesla and SpaceX got through. He got a divorce, and both of those companies almost went bankrupt and were sued by the SEC. Like, if you were going to put somebody through the gauntlet, he's been through the gauntlet and made it through. Anyway, how much tax will you owe on billions? 0 if you do it right. When you get above 20 million in assets or net worth, you basically exit the tax system if you know what you're doing. Appreciate you, Carl. Yeah, if you want access to stuff like this, again, Beyond Broke Mastermind, I've been in lots of mastermind groups and paid, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to be a part of those. And I try to provide as much or more value in the one that we have for, as little as $25 a month for the social membership. Carbon One gets you access to the capability to get in on the private investments. It's $100 a month. Like, I always want people to feel like they're getting one over on me. They'd be willing to pay way more for whatever we're giving them. So, anyway, yeah. And those prices won't always stay the same. I always take care of the people that take care of me. And so the people that have been in since the beginning and had faith, they've gotten some benefits from that, and that'll continue. The people that are here early will continue to take care of those people. So as things continue to progress, right, which we all want. David, Jake doesn't even have cash. I don't. I stay broke. Continually roll. I stay broke all the time. XRP Maxi or XRP Max. Yeah. If you want to call me that, that's fine. I'm here for ROI. I'm here for return on investment and the capability to leverage my asset and produce income. And I think that's probably the first one that I can do it with in the largest capacity. And that's why I'm in the position that I am. If you could show me something else that would be a greater return, a tier one asset, and I could also leverage it and produce a higher yield, I'm all for it. I would sell my XRP today and swap to that. But I haven't found that thing. So that's why I am where I am. Number one rule, don't lose money. That's at rule number 2, refer to rule number 1. Just don't lose money. Where do I think XDC will be? Double or triple digits? I know it's not financial advice. I don't think XDC goes that high. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does get to double or triple digits. I don't see XDC. Maybe double digits. Maybe. I don't think you get the same significant price appreciation on that network. The main application for that's trade finance, and that is a large use case, but it's not derivatives. It's not the stock market. It's not commodities. It's not bonds. It's not FX. It's not SWIFT. SBI and R3 do have applications where they can settle in XDC if it's convenient. But I'd maybe double digits. I don't know. I don't think it has the same long-term potential as some of the other assets. Not to say that there's not a lot of return there. I don't know what it's trading at right now. I can tell you. Hold on. It's currently at almost 5 cents. So it's still a pretty significant return. If it got to $10, you're looking at 200x. Still pretty good, but I think that there's other stuff out there just personally that probably do better. Now, if you're running a node, that's a different story. You have 10 million XDC, and we're building a protocol and a viable solution that will allow you to participate in a fund where you can, invest in the fund with your XDC and get the returns off of a node. Then you're compounding, right? Then you're earning, if it's a standby node, you get 8% a year. If it's a master node, it's 10% a year. You're going to have to pay the GP or the people that are running the node a portion of that. So maybe you're making 5 or 6% a year. And if you're, you got a lot of XDC and it's at $10 and you're earning 5 or 6% a year, now we're talking. Now we got income. You could probably leverage that. You could probably do other things with it because now it's got future income that you could discount cash flows back and take loans against. See where I'm going with this. So I do think that XDC will be valuable. I just don't think it's a tier 1 asset in the banking system, and I don't think it's used as much as some of the other assets. So what else do we have here? I'm probably going to wrap this up in about 5 more minutes. So I'm going to scroll on down, check here for any more super chats or anything, just to make sure I give people shout outs if they do that side. Wow, man. Appreciate all the comments. You guys have 941 comments tonight. This is crazy. 250 people watching. Thank you so much for hopping on here and spending a Monday night with me. Just grateful. Here's one for you. Utility Maximus says, do you own Ripple stock? Yes, I do. I think that will do very well. And we have run private investments through the Mastermind on Ripple equity. the majority of those deals were in the mid-20s, is where we were able to help people get access to those investments. We can involve up to 35 non-accredited investors that qualify as sophisticated investors on our deals through the Mastermind group, where we provide financial education and business resources so you qualify as a sophisticated investor. And we have helped a lot of people that would not have been able to get access to Ripple equity, the capability to do so. So really proud of that. Excited to be able to help people get access to things that they, otherwise wouldn't. So yes, and I do myself own a decent amount of Ripple stock. Let's see here. Katie Green, can you explain what the premium buying that Chad was talking about means? Yeah, absolutely. So Grayscale has these financial products where they buy the underlying asset and then they sell one share as equivalent to whatever amount of the underlying asset. So I think Solana, that's like 0.33 Solana, is selling at like $350 per 0.33 Solana. You could go buy just one Solana. I don't know what the price on Solana is right now, but it was like $100. Maybe it's a bit more than that. Maybe it's gone up some since then. That seems like a 3x over just the normal price of Solana, much less a third of a Solana. So you're looking at like a 9x premium over what the underlying asset's trading at. Grayscale's killing it. they are raking people. They're able to take those returns and go back into the market and buy more, right? So that's what's going on there. They're not trading a one-to-one. Bitcoin ETF also doesn't trade a one-to-one. It's like $50 a share or something, where the underlying asset's trading at 70,000. So that's kind of the other way, right? Like it's this many Satoshis is worth one share instead of, well, I mean, I guess not. Solana's kind of that way. So just to give you perspective, it would be like the underlying asset of Bitcoin trading at a 9x premium over the price. Doesn't make any sense. So, or maybe it does. Maybe that's just kind of where things are headed in the market. We'll have to see. Let's see here. Ripple stock is so expensive. I paid $38.20 a share. I hope it skyrockets. I still think you'll have a pretty good return at that. But again, I can't talk about current deals. But in the past, we have acquired Ripple equity at not quite half that, but a little bit more than half that. So just saying. Kelly has asked, how was the UAE? It was great, Kelly. Appreciate you asking. Appreciate you hopping on here. I hope you and the wife are doing well. Long flight, but my time there was well spent. Here we go. John Basilos. If you guys are in Australia, reach out to John. He's my guy over there, and he will get you taken care of. Kurt, appreciate you, man, with the super chat. If you guys don't know Kurt, he's good people. Him and T, I really like both those guys. So he says, shout out to Jake for building relationships and getting rooms, allowing him to drip gems back to us. Now we got to sit back and watch the movie. Appreciate you, Kurt. Some of these aren't cheap, I do my best to provide a lot of value so that I can afford to travel and meet people and make the connections and set things up, right? Again, it's selfish, but at the same time, it is going to provide a lot of value for others in the space. We're able to be the conduit that connects a lot of these financial institutions and players in the space. And I'm excited to be in that position to be able to work with those people and orchestrate things at scale that benefit everybody as a whole. So, Utility Maximus, we do not use Link2. We have in the past. My job as the GP on the deals and in the mastermind is to find the best price on the market through whatever means necessary, different brokers. Link2 is just one option and one broker on the market. There's about 15 that currently deal in private equity. We have access to 7 of those. We have direct relationships with those. And so I'm able to source liquidity for different private investments across all of those networks and, bring those deals back to the network that we have and get the best price. So there's very few situations where Link 2 is the best price on something. Their business model is great. I think that they've got a fantastic niche, and for the average accredited investor that doesn't have another option, I think that they provide a great option. However, what they do is they go out and buy at the same price as we do, and then they double it and sell it to other people. And so what they do is they de-risk themselves from the investments, basically. Let's say they go out and buy Ripple stock at $20 a share. They sell it to you at $38.20. And they sell 60% of the equity in that SPV. They've now recouped all of their original investment and got to keep 40% of that SPV for their long-term hold. And they take that money that they got back from you and they go out and buy more. And then they double the price and sell it again. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing illegal, completely capable of doing that. We would rather take 20% on the backside of the deal than rake people for 50% up front. Just the way we do business. And it's not as lucrative of a model. We don't make a ton of money. We just provide the best price. So anyway, we'd love to have you in the mastermind. Want to provide access to as many people as we can. So let's see here. What else? Here we go. Do you think XRP gets as high as Elizabeth Warren in her dream blunt rotation? Beaky Binders, man. Elizabeth Warren, I'm glad that Deaton's running against her, and I'm hopeful that, that incites some pretty good conversation and makes her answer some hard questions. I don't know that Deaton will win, but I'm really glad that he's running. And anyway, I think that he brings, and I know that he's been planning this for a while because he released his book last year, and it basically let all the skeletons out of the closet last year, right? And he wrote it himself. So nobody can really come after him for anything. He's already said everything bad about himself that's out there. They can't find anything on him because he's already disclosed it and basically put it out for the public to see. So I think that was his way of like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and now I can run for office, which is really smart on his behalf. I think that Deaton's a sharp guy. Let's see here. Super chat. Appreciate you, Black50. He said, do you recommend reading the book On the Table, Web3 World? So this is actually my CTO for our RIA wrote this book. It's Warren Buffett in a Web3 World. I think it's pretty good. I've read it myself, and it's an easy read. I think he actually started consulting in the NFT space. His name is Matthew Schneider. If you want to go check him out. And I think that it's a good introductory book to Web3 and kind of gives you some perspective on how Warren Buffett would navigate, what's going on. I'll probably swap that out, occasionally. Maybe I can swap it for books that I'm reading at the time. I read a lot of stuff on Audible, like when I do cardio and then when I'm in the car, just listen to books. Think and Grow Rich. It's what I'm on right now. And I go back to that almost every year. Read it once or twice. Running it up in the chat here. Here's a good one. Pro Clean Hall says, how should a new investor approach buying digital assets? So I don't know if you're new in the context of a new investor period or a new investor in digital assets and you have previous investing experience. There would be two different approaches there. If you're new to buying digital assets and you're new to investing, I would just consume as much financial education material as possible. I would read stuff by Ray Dalio. I would read stuff by Warren Buffett. I would read things by Charlie Munger, Ben Graham, value investors. I think all of those people are fantastic. And then take the knowledge from those individuals and other high net worth individuals. Tony Robbins has a really good book on building wealth that he just released not too long ago as well. Has a couple. Those are great. Would read those. I would scour the internet and get a lot of financial education. YouTube's another great place, which you're doing a good job. And then I would sit back. I just dove in. The first thing I bought was Chainlink. I watched Digital Dave, and he was talking about Theta and Chainlink and a lot of the utility projects, VeChain, Zilliqa, XLM, XRP, Bitcoin and ETH. He kind of like talked about a little bit. I would do my research on digital assets. I would figure out like maybe 5 of them max that I thought were going to have the highest ROI, or I wanted to use in some capacity long term that could generate cash flow for me, or I thought could. And then that's where I would go deep on like 5 different ones. Ignorance is why you would diversify. Okay. So if you don't know a whole lot about something, or maybe you're brand new to it, even if you've done a lot of research, you're still kind of ignorant. You've got to pay down that debt. That's when diversification comes into place. If you are, if you've done 5 or 10,000 hours worth of research on something and you become an expert at it, at that point, you have the right to silo yourself into a couple investments, maybe up to 10 investments if you're ignorant, right? You're just getting into something. And that's how I just spread across a large swath of crypto, like 5 and 10 grand across different investments, and just happened to get into things right before the bull run took off in 20. Like, I don't think I'm smart. I think I just lucked out, and did pretty well and took profit, which again, being a noob, like, you probably have a better chance of taking profit than people that have been here, honestly. So anyway, that'd be my recommendation. Learn as much as you can about traditional financial education. Do a lot of research on different projects, diversify across those projects for ones that you think you're going to do well, and then go deep on those would be my, if I was going to give advice for a new investor buying digital assets. All right. We are at the point where I probably need to wrap it up here. I am going to run it down to the bottom of the chat, see, just make sure I don't miss anybody. Do want to say, I appreciate you guys hopping on a Monday night. Again, super blessed to have you guys here with us. If you would like to check out the Mastermind, please do so. Private community there where we do private investment and have conversations like this every Saturday and Monday. Talk about things a little bit more candidly there than I do in a public forum, for conversations that I've had with people. And we have a lot of other very intelligent individuals there in the Mastermind. That's the point of the group, right? You bring together a lot of brilliant individuals that can bring insights or have different biases or life experience that you might not have. And then because of that, you're able to make better decisions. So I will answer this one real quick before I go. Caleb and Brown. I like Caleb and Brown. If you like a white glove service, they are great. They're out of Australia. Australia is the most stringent financial jurisdiction on the planet. And because of that, I have a high level of trust in Caleb and Brown. They are a broker. They source liquidity from all over. They do charge a premium for their service. We have access to other OTC desks. So if you're going to be transacting with more than $250,000, I don't think that their premium is justified personally. We have access to people that, do it for 10 times less. But I digress. I do think that they're a good company. I think that they're justified in their fee because they do a white glove service. So if you don't have an account there, you might look at getting one. I think it's good to have options, and especially if you're going to liquidate a good portion of your crypto. It's nice to have it there and be able to execute that order with a phone call. So, Appreciate ISOLAD for becoming a member. A couple other people becoming members. Appreciate y'all. We just enabled that like the other day. I'm not quite sure what that means, but appreciate you doing it. And I'm down to the bottom of the list here. So yeah, again, appreciate you guys hopping on a Monday night and hanging out with me. Hopefully this has been insightful for you. If you have any questions, comments, constructive criticism, always love feedback. So please reach out to the channels that I mentioned before. And again, we would love to see you in the mastermind. So with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I hope you all have a wonderful Monday evening, a wonderful week, and we'll see you guys on the next one.